attendance. That's okay. And then do we know of any board members? I'll call out their names, but do we know if any are online at this time? Okay. Okay. Let me grab this pen. Oh, yeah, I found one. Thank you. Member Bogus. Member Bollinger.
Here.
Member Booth. Here. Member Brinton.
Here.
Member Davis. Member Earl.
Yes.
Member Green. Member Hall. Is he here in the building?
Yeah.
Okay. Member Kelly. Member Carey.
Here.
Member Lear. Member Longacre.
Here.
Member Reel. And is that her?
Yeah.
Okay, so she's in the building as well. And then Member Wood.
Here.
And I am here. Okay, we have a quorum. We are looking good as board members continue to trickle in, hopefully. I know for Member Davis, we just finished finance not too long ago. I don't know how you made it here, Randy. Did you fly here or?
For the meeting.
Oh, okay. Oh, you made it. Well, good. There's Member Kelly. Perfect. We'll mark him here as well. Okay. So let's begin with on agenda item 5 for today. This is Utah School for the Deaf and the Blind, our board meeting. And so let's go to our action item here. This is 5.2. Oh, we do have public comment? That's okay. Okay. Oh, yeah, you did put it on there, but I don't see anything. So we have Tamara Flint here for public comment. Is she in person or online?
Sarah, that's just the secretary.
That's the secretary. Okay. So Sarah Erb, is she here or online?
She's here. She's here.
I'll figure this out. Oh, there she is behind Jenny. Perfect. Okay. Sarah, I don't have this in front of me, but I'm going to trust that what I read yesterday about keeping it professional into 2 minutes, and I see you have a child here, so make sure they can hear it too. So go ahead and come on up, and we'll put 2 minutes on the clock.
Hello, my name is Sarah Erb. I'm a parent that lives in Salt Lake City, Utah. My daughter Maeve is here with me today. She's 11, and you can take a seat, love. 1 second. So I'll just do a little bit of an audio or video or audio description of what she walked up here with. So she's using 2 trekking poles. We wanted to share with you what recreation might look like for a student who's blind or visually impaired, especially as it looks like there's some additional enrichment funds that are going to be available this year for the blind community. And we're excited about that. We're excited about being able to have more access because we've got a lot of folks in the community that are already doing a lot of activities with our youth, specifically 0 to 22 population. And so if we can help further with that funding, if we can help further the activities that are already being done that are community-led, they'll be more sustainable, and we can help raise expectations across the state for families and for our LEAs and for our teams at the School for the Blind. So at the bottom of the annual report, there's a picture of some students that did an activity, but they have high school students holding a hand with maybe a guide. We just took Maeve for her first time doing an overnighter backpacking trip, and she was able to walk independently and navigate both sides of the trail because she had her trekking poles. Maeve, do you want to stand up and show what that's like? And it was really exciting for me as a parent to see what that's like when we can say, you don't have to use your cane, you can have more of an ergonomic experience using both sides, using a tool that's an accommodation and just the right tool for the job. So sometimes I brought a tether, but I didn't bring it up with me. So there's also an option for a tether for people who are doing, say, cross country or track. They'll have a running guide with them. Sometimes they'll just run side by side. Sometimes they'll have a tether and it just hooks to your wrist. So you can have your hands free and still be moving freely and learn the ergonomics of running, because that's something that we've been practicing, just ergonomics of basic sports. So reaching out to the community is something that I would recommend for the stakeholder input and also execution of how to use those funds in a way that is sustainable. Because when we're talking about the deaf mentorship program, which is what a lot of those funds were allotted for previously, that was for mentorship. But when we talked about moving them over to pay for folks that are employed at the blind school, that's not a mentorship component in that aspect. So thank you for your time, and we look forward to hearing further conversation this year with improvements for the state. Thanks.
Sarah, before you leave, we don't typically do this at public comment, but I would be happy if you are willing and if Maeve is willing, if she would tell us about her experience at school. You think she would be willing to do that, Maeve? Are you willing to do that?
Of course. My experience at school is very amazing. We have a team, and a shout out to my SPED director, Leah, who's actually my aide in the village, basically outside classroom. Well, to make a long story short, I just work and I call her if I need her. And I'm usually independent. And I don't know what else there is to say about it. But they get me lots of technology and they're really great. My school is Pacific Heritage Academy, PHA.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Yes. And what grade?
I'm in 6th grade.
6th grade. My goodness. Okay. Thank you. And thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Maeve.
Thanks.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you. Let's move to agenda item 5.2. This is the monthly USDB budget update. And I believe Deborah is going to join us at the table here.
Good afternoon, Deborah Jacobson, Assistant Superintendent of Operations. Not sure how I follow that, but which one is, oh, the enrichment funds. What we have before you here are the enrichment funds that have gone forward to the Advisory Council and what their recommendations are. So, oh no, this is correct, sorry. One thing to note is we have dialed on the deaf side, we've dialed that back to what their actual appropriation is. Highlighted in blue there. And then on the blind side, everything highlighted in blue, we require action today. However, after posting, after the Advisory Council and after posting backups here, we've gotten a lot of stakeholder feedback on enrichment funds, and it's a unique situation for USBE or USBE because they haven't had as much enrichment funds in the past. So taking into account some of the stakeholder feedback, we would like to pull some of these items back and take them back to the Advisory Council and re-evaluate some of these things. But we do request that we take action today on the LEA activity and the family activity support. And if you need further detail on those, we have Associate Superintendent Patton here that can give more detail on those if you need it.
Yeah, I have a question from member Carey, and then we'll go in that direction.
Thank you. So my question before we discuss what you're leaving on the request, it looks like 1, 2, 5 or so items are coming off the request. Can you give us a general sense of the feedback you received that would trigger such a considerable change in what you're presenting today? Does that make sense?
Sure. The biggest item is the salaries piece. We want to ensure that if we do put salaries in this funding source, that they truly are benefiting the program and what it's intended to do. The others, now that there's a considerable amount of money for the blind community now, we kind of want to make sure that every activity that is in here will truly benefit the community as a whole. Because these aren't just for USB or USDB students. This is for students across the entire state.
And if I may, Chair. So, and again, I'm just trying to understand. I thought you said you're looking to make sure that the salaries correspond, that's my word, with the funding source. Can you walk me through what that means? Like, are you looking for better alignment? Just help me understand what you were trying to communicate there.
Correct. It's just to make sure, so these funds actually come from a trust, the land trust money for the blind school. And we need to make sure that the positions that we are requesting are put in here actually benefit the trust.
Final question.
So,
And because you're doing this analysis, is this out of an abundance of caution, or is there concern that there might not be that alignment at the present time?
well, with all positions at USDB right now, we want to make sure before we pull these forward or bring these forward. When they went to advisory council, there probably wasn't enough detail for them to make a true decision of, and so we want to take it back and make sure they really have all the information they need to make that decision.
So just to make sure I understand, so it's not like there was new information that might suggest this isn't the case, but it sounds like out of an abundance of caution, you want to make sure this alignment is there.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Member Earl?
Yeah, I would almost recommend, I'm not sure why this didn't go through the USDB committee, but it seems like that would be a great place to vet this out and have, the public comment in there and then the board members that are there so that when it comes to the board, it's already gone through a couple of vettings. So that, and I don't know if, when does the advisory group meet? Is the next meeting?
I think it's 2 weeks.
We've got
Okay. So,
superintendent, or I
yeah.
don't know what titles are anymore, but she says October, or sorry. November
23rd.
23rd. I was going to
Okay.
say October's gone.
I just
Okay.
wonder if this can go on the committee's meeting next week, and then those recommendations go back to the advisory group for consideration. It would seem like we should be using that committee for this purpose. That's why I was surprised when I saw this and got emails. I was like, I listened to the committee and I didn't hear anything about this. And I realized the advisory committee probably met after is probably the reason why. So now I have one other question. This has to do with, does the law prohibit us from using this money for salary for blind education?
No, it does not state that specifically. There are, however, USBE's advisory council has set some parameters about it, around it, stating that there should be a limited percentage of the money spent on
Oh, yeah.
salaries.
Okay, that makes sense. I think the other school land trust funds out there allow for, people to be hired, salaries or whatever, for the purpose of, the school. So I would think it would be for the purpose of the blind school. So out of abundance of precaution, we're kind of making sure this meets the needs.
Right.
Okay. I would be happy to move this forward. What was the suggested recommendation again? What were the
The-
two?
The LEAs and family activity support.
Okay, I would make a motion that the board approve and move forward the fiscal year 26 USDB family
And LEA
and LEA
activity support.
activities support. I feel like I'm giving a prayer in primary. So,
Okay, let's make sure that we get this correct. Member Earl, before we move into discussion here.
maybe it's budget items, I don't know, enrichment budget items or something like that. Oh, that would work.
So the motion is that the board approve the FY26 USDB family and LEA activity support budget items.
It probably needs to have enrichment in there somewhere, so they know where the funds are coming from, right?
Mm.
Yeah, there you go, enrichment budget items, that works.
So the motion is that the board approve the FY26 USDB family and LEA activity support enrichment budget items. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
There's a second. Member Earl, do you want to speak to that?
No, I think, those are probably already scheduled and ready to go, and they probably need the funding for those, so.
Member Carey?
Thank you, Chair. So I'm not going to support this motion, and it's not because I don't think that the money isn't needed or that it's not appropriate to allocate, but I would feel, and this goes to what Board Member Earl had said, it was my understanding, and this may be on me, that these matters would go through our standing USDB committee prior to coming to the full board. They're the ones who have the requisite level of experience and familiarity with USDB and its budget. And so I look to them for their guidance on issues like this. So again, I'm not going to support this motion, stressing that, again, it's not because I feel like there's anything untoward, but rather my preference is that these matters go through our standing subcommittee prior to coming to the full board, just so that there's that additional level of reassurance that individuals with the familiarity and experience in these areas are able to give us their feedback and guidance. Thank you, Chair.
So the motion then is that the board approve the FY26 USDB family and LEA activity support enrichment budgets. Seeing no lights, let's go ahead and vote. And, Member Brinton?
Yeah, I guess I just still have questions too, and I too would appreciate it going through committee and being vetted and getting questions answered first. I wonder why we're removing the activities in the blind school. Could I ask? And enrichment product, because they have a different salary base and
I guess I don't understand your question. I'm sorry. Can you clarify your?
well, I'm just how much are we removing from the blind schools enrichment fund projects?
So it's those bottom 5 there that are highlighted in blue. And we're not removing them. We're just going to take these projects back to the advisory council and give them more information to make a decision on whether or not this is the direction they want to go using these funds. Does that help?
Okay. Yes, thank you.
Vice Chair Wood?
I just want to speak to the 2 items that they're recommending that we move forward, the activity support for LEAs and families. One of the things that I want to commend our Assistant Superintendent Patton for doing is really trying to figure out how to get these enrichment funds out to our outreach students across the state and to even our non-outreach, those students who are blind or visually impaired across the state. And so these are grant programs where a family or an LEA can request funds to help engage a student into an activity. I know Davis School District requested one where they were putting together an entire sporting activity for their students up there who are blind or visually impaired. We've had different trips, band trips, where a student wanted to go but needed that extra support because they are blind. And so I think the reason we want to move these ahead is that those requests are coming in, and the advisory council has done a really great job of setting up a rubric and determining that it was kind of a pilot program last year, but they're moving ahead in how to fairly and transparently support these families through these funds. And I think that's probably the reason why they want this to move forward a little bit faster, so that they can distribute those funds as needed without another delay.
Member Brinton.
Could I ask what the ERC USB material refresh line is?
If we can ask Associate Superintendent Patton, she can address that for you.
Yes, please.
And maybe the AT, high tech, and ALMC, just curious.
Hi, yes, I'm more than happy to address those. Let's see, your first question was the ERC, right? The ERC USB material refresh. So it came to our attention, our Sarah Lovato, who was our ERC director and kind of monitors our equipment there and what is needed, and families and districts can check out anything that's in the ERC. It's like the library for USDB, the Educational Resource Center is what that is. And it came to our attention that we needed some some calculators, and also some just refreshing of some of the things that we had for low vision students there. And that was about $50,000 was the amount. It didn't come to be quite $50,000, but what Sarah, our director, came back with was, she said that it would be between $40,000 and $50,000. So that's what we had set for that. So that's just to replenish those pieces of equipment. Those are not. They're different than from what the assistive technology piece is, though. The ERC is different than our assistive technology. Does that answer that question? And then our the ALMC is the Accessible Learning Materials Center. Though that group creates and builds things for our students, typically with multiple disabilities. So that's why it's called low tech versus high tech. And we kind of try to stay away from those terms some, but the low tech would be possibly like a calendar system where they would be developing an object that would represent a routine that a student who has multiple disabilities plus the vision loss can set up a routine. They're very, very individualized, and most of those are consumable. We don't get those back and then redistribute those to other students, because those kids again have extremely complex needs, very limited motorically, and then also cognitively. They're not our students who are our academic Braille students. And then the high tech is just that. They are our Braille note, are the accessible, our JAWS, the things that are accessible for students who are on a different level academically, that we then have the repository to be able to lend out, and the districts and families too can see and take data on whether or not that piece of equipment is going to benefit the child, the student, and because they're very expensive pieces of equipment. And then it's the district's responsibility to purchase those. But we're very lenient on, they have 90 days, but we're very lenient on making, if there's not another student that needs that device, we don't get it back. So we work with districts on that. So does that answer that? So we've got the low tech for kids with multiple disabilities, and then the higher tech that are more academic.
Okay, let's get the motion back up here. The motion is that the board approve the FY26 USDB Family and LEA Activity Support Enrichment budget items. Let's go ahead and vote. And who do we have online? Member Davis?
Member Green.
And
Yes.
So Member Davis is yes. Member Green
Yes.
is yes. Thank you. And can we confirm we've got 3 absent, Member Bogus, Member Hall, and Member Reel. Okay. That passes 10 in favor, 2 opposed, those opposed being Member Carey and Member Brenton. Thank you. Deborah, anything else on that 5.2? Okay. Let's go into the superintendent report. This is agenda item 5.3. Member Earl, go ahead.
Just a second. Okay, is I'm just trying to, that's the full budget update? Okay, that's further down. What am I missing? Okay, and you're talking to that next. Are you moving from 5.2 to something else?
That's what I'm wondering.
Because you were just moving to
We had an
5.3.
action item. I didn't know if that concluded, but.
Okay, that's, yeah, sorry.
Thank
That's
you.
why I was like, I had other questions, but okay, go
I
ahead.
didn't want to tell you to leave the tables. I just was wondering why you were staying there. So
I'm happy to go.
it's too late.
Because
Thank you.
now I unfortunately have to bring my little black cloud. So
Okay.
if we can pull up the LEA contracts. So we have officially sent out all of the contracts to the LEAs. And based on, so here you can see the total number of hours by LEA, by service, and the total dollar amount. Of this, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, because it's a long way down there, there's 97 contracts. Of this, there's 82,000 hours worth of work, a little over 82,000 hours worth of work. Of that, only 42,000 can be billed. So we have a couple of limitations here. And as you can see, we can only recover $2.8 million, which isn't even close. That only covers about 22% of the overall outreach budget for USDB. Board rule actually restricts us from charging LEAs for any consultation fees and any deafblind services. And then we're also restricted by the fee schedule that the legislature has approved. So those are 2 factors that kind of play into this. So based on that information and based on where the budget sits right now, we are currently estimating that we're going to have to use about $1.8 million of that contingency fund. At the end of the day, the goal is still to stay outside of the contingency fund. That is still the goal and what we're working towards. But as of today, it kind of looks like that's where we're going.
Member Earl.
Yeah, just a couple of, I'm just trying to think through this. So last year, this was pretty close to the same amount we were over, right? And even in August, we knew we were going to need additional funding. We asked for additional funding. We didn't get that. So do we ask for additional funding because we're over again for the very same reason that we have students with IEPs that need to be served? That's my question. Do we ask for the funding because I know we have contingency funding, but same as last year and years when we've needed additional funding, we've asked and didn't we got portion. We needed that last year as well. Asked, we didn't receive that. So we have we're in the same predicament as last year. And the question becomes, do we need to ask for additional funding?
I think we're in a space where the working group has made their recommendations to the legislature, which also includes a funding model piece to that. And I think we have to see that through, if that makes sense.
Okay, so I guess what I'm saying is that we have knowledge that we don't have adequate funding to meet the IEPs, but but instead, and I know we have contingency money, so it's not, right? We set that aside. The USB's making sure we adequately take care of that.
Mhm.
But we also have the knowledge that we don't have the funding because we're trying to meet IEPs.
Right, but the
Right.
goal is to still not use that funding. Like that's just where our estimates are today, based on how it's budgeted. As we work through the year and we actually realize the expenditures and any alignments that we still have to do in the agency as a whole, that will kind of dictate whether or not we need to use those funds.
And would
or
that
not.
depend on enrollment numbers,
Potentially,
fluctuation?
potentially.
Okay. And we had, I guess maybe that's something to ask Darren, what the enrollment numbers are, right? Okay, thank you.
Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. If I may direct a question to Deborah, just to clarify. So the numbers we're seeing on this document for the sum of the total annual numbers is how many the services we're actually providing, but you were saying that we can only charge for about 42,000. Is that correct?
Correct.
So is this the amount that we're seeing on the sum of the total cost by fee? That's what it's costing us total, or is that what we can only charge because of the fee schedule and all the rules?
Correct. So the 2.8 million is what actually went out in contracts to the LEAs. The overall budget for outreach is a little over $13 million.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Member Booth.
Deborah, I'd like to ask a question, if that's possible, Chair. What is the schedule for consideration of the financial part of the working group's recommendations? Have they set that schedule, and when can we anticipate hearing what they're recommending that we need to follow through with before we ask for additional funding?
With the legislature, they haven't really talked about that. We probably will not, they won't really discuss that until the session.
Okay.
And we haven't seen any schedules for that, so.
All right, thank you. Member Earl.
Yeah, one more clarification. And I think in the spring, right, we had people we didn't hire on.
Mhm.
We had 26 or something people that we're going to need to let go in order to come up to zero, right? Except for we did have to pay for their services they'd already provided. How many of those people, we still have those people on though, right? Or we've had to hire to meet the needs of what the IEPs are. Is that accurate?
Yes and no. So
Okay.
we actually needed to eliminate 65 positions. And so that was the original plan. But in order to meet the legal requirements for the current IEPs, we had to bring back 26. So that's
Okay,
where
so
the 26 is coming
we
from.
either continued or hired on people so we can meet the IEPs
Correct.
based on the legal obligations we needed for this year.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
Les?
Oh, Member Brenton.
Are legislative requests being drafted to show things to the legislature and where we need to change funding models, or is that coming through the advisory committee? How? Because like it's showing that we are missing the right. We're not solvent in the current funding models. So
Yeah, so that request actually came by way of the working group. They reported to PEA already, and then eventually the LFAs will make their recommendation to the legislature, and we'll likely hear that during the session.
I've got Member Davis who's got a hand, and then over to Member Carey. So Member Davis.
Yes, thank you. You mentioned that the LEAs have paid about 2.8 million for services, but the cost for those services is about 13 million. So, seems like, we've got just over a $10 million difference. How much of that is already funded, and how much of that is precluded to charge LEAs in rule or code? I guess maybe there's code also. this is a question we can talk about next week in our committee. I'm not expecting the answers to all this right now, right off the top of your head, but I just want us to be thinking about these questions. And then my other question was, and it's a little bit more nuanced, I guess, than what I've heard so far. I hope you don't feel it repetitive. But did the working group recommend any changes to the board rules or code that precludes charging for these particular types of outreach services? And we can talk about that in our committee meeting this next week too, if you know, we don't know those things right off the top of our head, or we're not ready for that today.
Can I address those? Sure. So the limitations in the board rule were actually found when we were preparing the contracts. And so that has not even, that didn't even go through the working group. So they weren't aware of that. The two things that I can, historically, that I can share is consultation services and deafblind services have always been considered a state level activity. And so I think that's why it was excluded, because as a state agency, I think there was an expectation that they would provide those services outside of their direct services. Does that kind of help answer the question? Or
Okay.
does that?
Yeah. May I follow up, Chair?
Yes, please.
So what you're saying is consulting, like interveners, maybe if that's what they do, other consultation of USDB teaching or training folks at the LEA level, that's always been a state responsibility. It sounds like what's happened over the years is we're now providing direct services, and that wasn't a state responsibility previously. And that's where up to this 13 million is the cost that you're talking about.
That's,
Those two combined.
yes, so that is the total outreach budget to include deafblind services and any consultation services as well. That's a total budget.
And direct services.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Oh, one last quick follow-up, Chair.
Yep.
I've always known deaf blind is a whole nother category than deaf services or blind services. Are you saying deaf blind as its own category, or are you saying this also includes direct services for the deaf and direct services for the blind?
It includes all outreach, so for the deaf, the blind, and for deafblind services.
That is helpful. Thank you so much.
And if I can just add one more thing, Chair. Even if we could charge for deafblind services and for consultation services, it would only add, well, when I say deafblind services, it's the deafblind specialist, as well as consultation services. It could only add about $215,000 to that 2.8. Interveners, we currently do not have an actual established fee in the fee schedule to even charge that. So we'd have to actually create one for that.
Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. And I just want to make sure I have a handle on this. It's my understanding we provided approximately $13 million in services.
Mm-hmm.
We were reimbursed $2.8 million for the services provided by our LEAs.
They have not been reimbursed yet. We've just entered into a contract with them.
And the contract would require reimbursement in the amount of $2.8 million, approximately.
Correct.
And it's my understanding that one of the reasons that the contract doesn't demand or require more is a combination of the legislative fee schedule and some of our board rules.
Correct.
Is there I'm sorry, Chair. Okay, thank you. So has an estimation been done on if we amended board rules, how much additional reimbursement or funding we would receive back? I'm just trying to figure out, is this a board rule issue primarily, or is this a fee schedule rule? My suspicion is it's fee schedule, but how much can we bring back as a board if we adjust the rules that are limiting our ability to bring some of these funds back in? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, so if we adjust the board rule, we can only bring in an additional 215,000.
That's what that.
Mm-hmm. So it is largely the fee schedule.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Member Brenton?
Hi, thank you, Deborah. I'm just wondering if you have any idea on what a funding schedule might look like and how long it will take to propose that. I mean, is this years out in solving this?
I would imagine, so we're guessing that it's going to take about 2 years. It's one of the recommendations from the working group as well. So I would imagine there will be discussion during the session. It will give us a year for USDB to work on their data to get really good, clear data. So we can run funding models that can be proposed in the 27 session in time to be appropriated for 28, if that makes sense.
Member Earl?
Yeah, so based on just a couple of discussion items that have gone on here, this funding model has been in place how long? 2 years? Years. So we're not,
Correct.
what's happening here is just the funding model that we do every year.
Correct, with the exception of now we're billing all LEAs instead of the 3%.
Right, so we actually are bringing in more than we previously have brought in because we're able to charge the full. Right, we're able to charge all of our services 100%, and that's what we're doing for outreach.
We are charging the maximum amount that we're
You're right.
allowed.
My
Yes.
apologies, right.
Yes.
The 100% of the fee that we can charge, right? One other question that just came up. So once again, if we're not able to, if we're not able to ask for any funds, we're going to be in the same position next year if there's not a funding model put in. Unless we ask for the funds this legislative session, we will not have the funds for next year. It won't take care of this year, but we won't have that 1.5, 1.8, 2 million, I don't know, 12 million, not 12 million, 1.2 million, whatever it is. We won't have it next year. We'll have to fund that again. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Based on today's.
Mm-hmm.
Was there any follow-up? Member Earl? Okay. Member Carey?
So, and I appreciate your patience, Chair. Thank you. So I have heard that, and again, I'm waiting for a response back, but are any of the districts being charged less this year than they have in prior years?
So in prior years, it was only the 3% or higher. And so there's a lot that are not. I think the 3% or higher, some of them are paying less for sure, and some of them are paying more.
And do you know what the net balance works out to? Is that?
I haven't ran that analysis.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. It's quiet for a second. Deborah, you ready to move on?
That's all I have, unless there's any more questions.
Well, last time you stayed at the table when I thought you were done, so. Okay, I appreciate that. I think we appreciate that, and that gives us something to chew on for a little bit as we do what we can to help the USDB be in a good situation. So we appreciate your reports here and thoughts. Thank you. Okay, let's move into a superintendent report, and I believe that we're going to hear from Darren Nielsen, who is online.
Yeah, good afternoon, Board. Darren Nielsen, Assistant Superintendent for the Utah Schools for the Deaf and the Blind. And Chair, if it's okay with you, I'd like to just move right into the Education Foundation discussion, which is something that I would like to lead, given the time frame that we're on for our agenda today. Would that be okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And I also want to acknowledge to Board Member Carey, the question that he had earlier about why is a particular agenda item not going through committee first. Both this discussion around the Education Foundation and the Teacher Student Success Plan are coming directly to the full board for the Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind for various reasons, and I'll explain those as we go. The Education Foundation is a 503c that was established by the Schools for the Deaf and Blind in 2012. And it's allowed to do that under 53E8202, which establishes the authority of the board to do that. And then 53E3403 outlines the parameters or the requirements associated with doing that. In the recent internal audit on the Schools for the Deaf and Blind, there were concerns raised about the Education Foundation. One of those was that it was found that the articles of incorporation were active but delinquent under the Department of Commerce, and so there was an action item around getting those out of delinquency. Our business office for the Utah State Board of Education has updated those filings as of August, and so the foundation is now not in a delinquent status. There also were concerns in the audit about the bylaws associated with the foundation. And so one of the next steps for the foundation to do will be to review and update their bylaws. There's a requirement for an external annual audit, and they have to file a report with the Office of the State Auditors. That action item is still pending for the foundation to be able to get up and going. They have not met under the direction of the Board of Education. They have been told to pause until we got the Articles of Incorporation up and going. And again, now they have a meeting scheduled for November 14th, which is their first meeting since prior to the release of the audit. There was a concern in the audit about possible duplication of roles. Your board has been discussing the enrichment funds, which come around through the Permanent Trust Program, and the Advisory Council that's established under the board's authority has a primary responsibility in reviewing and making recommendations to the board about those enrichment funds. In terms of the donated funds that come in, I shouldn't use that term because there's an account for donated funds too, but the foundation funds that come in through a grant writing or donation process, the foundation has the authority to distribute those under the guidelines of their bylaws. The business office for the State Board of Education has secured legal consultation for the foundation for their November 14th meeting to help them with some decisions that they need to make. And one of the things that I thought was important for the board to hear and perhaps have some discussion about so that the foundation members could reference that this discussion when they meet on the 14th is when the foundation meets, they should have a discussion about whether they would continue to exist or go through a process of disillusionment. That's a decision that falls under the authority of the foundation. Now that the foundation has been established, the foundation is the entity that needs to make that decision, again, whether to continue and move forward in their current role or whether to go through disillusionment. That'll be one of the things they'll discuss on the 14th of November. In addition, in the context of the concerns that were raised through this internal audit process. But I wanted to make sure the board is aware of the work that we're doing on behalf of the board in relationship to the foundation. It's also noteworthy that the executive director for the foundation has turned in that person's resignation, and today is actually their last day. So currently, at the end of today, the foundation won't have an executive director, which is a position that's been funded through the Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind administrative account. Back to Board Member Earl's question, I think it was about enrollment numbers. As of October, we have 370 students on our campus programs and 1,183 students receiving outreach services through the Schools for the Deaf and Blind. So I'll pause there and open up a chair. If there's discussion that the board would like to have. Again, the value of this might be allowing the members of the foundation board to know the voice of the board, even though the board, again, can't legally direct the foundation on what action they should take. I believe there's value in the foundation being able to know the position or the general tone that the board has related to the foundation.
Thank you. Darren, we do have a question from Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. Assistant Superintendent Nielsen, just a clarifying question. My understanding was that the donations being brought into the foundation were approximately, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on any of these numbers, was approximately about $100,000, but it was costing us about $50,000 for an executive director. Is that correct?
I can confirm that the compensation for the executive director, the full compensation was $50,000. I'm not confident on the amount of donations that are received. Perhaps Deborah could confirm that, but I believe you're right that it has been in many of the years about $100,000.
Okay, thank you. One follow-up, please. And I don't know if this is going to be best directed towards maybe Deborah or Scott, but is there or maybe Darren can answer this as well, is if the foundation did not exist, would USDB still have a mechanism for accepting donations where that money could go directly to serve the students of USDB? Or is it required, is this the only way we could gather those donations?
Yeah, let me take a shot at it, and then either Deborah or Deputy Jones could correct me. We do have an account that's identified as the donated funds account 9214. That's referenced in the audit as well. And this is one of the areas that the internal audit indicated might be a area of duplication. So there is a way, and we currently do receive funds through the donated funds account. I don't believe that fund is a 503c qualifying donation. What I mean by that, and this is what I've been told as I've done some exploratory work around the value of the foundation, is that there are some charitable organizations that can make contributions only to organizations that are 503c status.
Thank you. Scott has a comment, or are we good, Scott? Let me
piece.
Some clarity on the 501.
Yeah, and just to, well, some additional clarity, the $100,000 is about an average of what they brought in since their inception per year over, time. So just to clarify that. But that's subject to further review. And I think the audit pointed that out, is that we need to be, much improved in that area. And Darren's going to certainly, the foundation could take us there in the legal counsel. The other piece to it too is Superintendent Nielsen is spot on. The reason there's particular IRS laws that govern donations by corporations or firms, and that is why the 501c3 designation, right? Donations can go into the donated account, but then if there's particular parameters that necessitate that a particular donation should go to a 501c3, that's where the disconnect might occur for a donor that's interested in donating something that has to be donated to a 501c3 under the law. So,
thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. If it's okay with board members, I'd like to saunter for 5 minutes and just, I've got some things I need to take care of. Is that okay, board members? Okay, give us 5 minutes, Darren, if you will, and we'll be back. Thank you. Thank you, board members. Thank you, public, for allowing that time. I've got a light from Member Kelly, so let's get board members back in their seats here. And we'll go over to you, Member Kelly. Let's get your light going. Okay, Member Kelly.
And I don't know who best to direct this question to, but when someone makes a donation to a 501c3, and then the school accepts that donation and spends that money. However, what disclosure requirements are required of that 501c3 so the public has some transparency and knows how that money is being spent, but also knows what money's coming in? What disclosure is required by the 501c3?
We've got Scott going to answer. Go ahead, Scott.
Well, I'll give it a shot, Chair. So where we're at with Board Member Kelly's question is in the space of what's called donor activities. So when a donation is made, the donor can, so then we're also in the space of, is the donation restricted or unrestricted? So a donor could say, look, here's X amount of dollars, and I want it specifically used to put wheelchair ramps in a school. Or they could say, here's, $1 million, and you do the foundation does what's best, what the foundation determines is best for the Utah schools and for the deaf and the blind students. We're going to see that, as we move together, depending on, what Superintendent Nielsen pointed out, if the foundation board members currently want to continue, we will be, the legal counsel will help ensure that the donor activities statements are very clear. Who donated, how much, is it restricted, is it unrestricted? There's probably some additional details I'm missing, from it, but does that help answer Board Member Kelly's question, sir?
You have a follow-up, Member Kelly?
Yeah, I mean that's you're speaking to specifically the USDB and their foundation and their desire, but what legal requirements are there for disclosure? I am thinking a little bit possibly more broadly in terms of 501c3s throughout the state of Utah, where if Texas Instruments is making a large donation to a foundation, but they are then expecting some type of a return on that, what disclosure requirements are legally required?
The 501c3 should disclose what, I think that's where we're in that restricted, Texas Instruments, for your example, following up on the example through the chair, Texas Instruments says, here's this money, use it for this, and then we want this. That has to be disclosed in the donated activities statement. So pretty much for any foundation. But then, if I may, Chair, I appreciate this question, because then we're also in the space of, well, what is the foundation? Is it an education foundation? Is it there's differences too on what within the 501c3 space do it, and that's what legal counsel will help the Utah Schools Deaf and the Blind Foundation with, because they are an education foundation. And so then there's even more requirements. I don't know if I want to say more, but different requirements from, say, a non-education 501c3. So there's those parameters too. Does that help, Chair? Over.
Member Earl.
From what I understand, this particular entity doesn't have any board members on it from the board, and not even any non-voting members. And so we can make a recommendation, but the entity is independent. They can do whatever they want. They don't really, whether we made a motion or not, it's whatever that entity decides to do. And so when that group meets in a few weeks, they're maybe listening, they're just hearing our questions, our concerns, and hopefully they can take those into consideration. I don't know, do we want just a recommendation? I guess we can't really vote on anything, it's informational, but it sounds to me like it's not really been functioning the way it needed to function, and that as being an independent entity, it probably needs to decide whether it's going to do something, or maybe this is time to say, is this really the purpose of this? And maybe it's time to decide whether or not it's necessary to move forward with it or not on what they're doing. So,
And I'm in a similar space. You know, obviously, we're not going to take a vote here, but Assistant Superintendent Nielsen asked for kind of the feel of the board. I'm in a similar space. We've put there has been some money put into it, but not a whole lot of money coming back. It doesn't sound like it's doing what they had hoped that it would do, and so I'm of a similar vein. If what I'm hearing correctly is that it might be time to say this isn't working, or reevaluate everything, right? But what's happening now isn't working, and so I don't know if it's worth the time and energy. I've got Scott and then Jenny.
Yeah, and there's no undue criticism here or anything like that. But the audit did point out that it's, with the current bylaws and the current articles of incorporation, it did seem to, and this goes to my point to Board Member Kelly, respectfully, that the foundation seemed to be established as an education foundation, but then there was a lot of charity work, or a lot of charity, like Sub for Santa, food donation, and that's not wrong, but it is wrong if your bylaws and your, you could run into this. So that's what we're going to do. If they want to continue, it's not state regulation or anything like that. It's just helping if they want to continue to do it. So it's not a difficult thing. We're just helping, along that line. I hope that helps. So,
Member Earl.
One other question related to the members of that group. The superintendent of the school, the deaf and the blind, is not on that, right? That's an independent entity. Am I right in that? They're not a required member, or I guess they could come and sit on that. Do we know on that?
Yeah, I can confirm that that's correct, Board Member Earl.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't see any other lights. I would guess that indicates that there's not too much opposition or disagreement with what was shared so far. Assistant Superintendent Nielsen, it's going to come back to you to continue on with your report.
Okay, thank you. And then the next item, the teacher-student success plan. Again, to Board Member Carey's point, ideally this would go through the committee, the standing committee, and then come to the full board. This is my responsibility. The deadline for LEAs to submit this after having their LEA board review it is today. So by the time I became aware of that, the necessity for us to add this to today's full board agenda was present. So it's my fault for that, and I apologize, but appreciate your willingness to review and potentially approve the teacher-student success plans for our schools for the deaf and our schools for the blind.
Thank you, and we appreciate that. Can we've got a potential motion here. Board members, any questions? We are on agenda item 5.5, and we appreciate Assistant Superintendent Nielsen's respective time. So we've now moved into 5.5. Do we have any questions regarding this action item, or any motions that board members would like to bring forth? Member Booth.
I would be happy to make a motion that the board approve the teacher-student success plans for the Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind.
The motion's been stated. We've got a second. And so back to you, Member Booth. Would you like to speak to that?
I think that it's one of the great opportunities that we have, both at this level and I know at the local level, as they are often, as a board, having a chance to review and approve success plans. This is what we're here for, trying to help students succeed and opening doors of opportunity for them. So I appreciate the efforts to get these plans in place, and would like to show our vote of support in moving them forward.
Thank you. Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that. And I understand that the timeline of things gets sticky, and I know that we'll learn and improve moving forward. But I will tell you that the nice thing about these TSSP plan or funding source is that it's directly tied to school improvement plans. And that's decided at a school level, which we've all, a lot of us really appreciate when the money's going directly to that local level, improving learning for students and having the input of the local community. So I support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. To restate the motion, it is that the board approve the teacher-student success plans for the Utah School for the Deaf and the Blind. Let's go ahead and vote. Member Davis?
Yes.
Thank you, Member Davis. Okay, that passes unanimously with members Bogus and Green absent. Okay. Next is our standing committee, so we will turn over to Chair Wood.
Thank you, Chair. The first motion for the board is that the board approve USDB as an authorized APPEL sponsor for deaf education, birth through 22, and authorize USDB to implement the program in accordance with Utah Code 53E-6-306 and Rules R277-303 and R277-304.
Okay, the motion then is that the board approve USDB as an authorized APPEL sponsor for deaf education, birth through 22, and authorizes USDB to implement the program in accordance with Utah Code 53E-6-306 and Rules R277-303 and R277-304. Seeing no lights, let's vote. Member Davis?
Yes.
That passes unanimously with 2 absent. Back to you, Chair Wood.
Thank you. For item 6.3, I move that the board approve the USDB positive behavior plans for JMS, KBS, EDS, SUSD Online, and the Utah School for the Blind in compliance with UCA 53G-10-407 on second and final reading.
Thank you. The motion before the board then is that the board approve the USDB positive behavior plans for JMS, KBS, EDS, SUSD Online, and Utah School for the Blind in compliance with UCA 53G-10-407 on second and final reading. Member Earl?
Just for the public, those acronyms are the school's acronyms, just so the public, we're reading through this and I'm thinking if someone is not familiar with anything there, it's like, what in the world did they just say? So just an FYI.
Thank you. Seeing no additional lights, let's vote. Member Davis?
Yes.
Thank you. That passes 12 in favor, 1 abstention, and 2 absent. The 1 abstention is from Member Carey. Chair Wood.
Moving on to item 6.4, I move that the board approve the USDB paid professional hours to educators policy in compliance with R277-629 on first reading and forward to the board for final approval. And I do have an amendment to that.
The motion that came from committee then is that the board approve the USDB paid professional hours to educators policy in compliance with R277-629 on first reading and forward to the board for final approval. Chair Wood for an amendment.
Yes, if you want to look, I don't know, there's page numbers. Anyway, section 7 of the policy, we need to amend section 7.1 and 7.2. In the first one to change December 12th, so strike December 12th, or strike 12 in 2025 and add after that date to the following payroll. So it will say educators who complete approved activities on or before December will be paid on that date following payroll. Sorry, I've been asked to add this in. It's a little bit confusing. And the same thing that we'll just move May to eliminate 12/2026 and put May, and will be paid following that date, the following payroll. Does that make sense?
Okay, so keep an eye on that. In context, board members, it looks like the dates are very specific in the rule, and for moving forward, instead of updating the date every year or so, we can just give a general in December following the payroll and in May following payroll. Is that correct? Okay. I'm speaking to your motion, which hasn't been seconded. I'll second it, and then, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Let's make sure it's correct. I just was seeking clarity there.
I
Make sure that
appreciate
this reads correctly, if you will.
Yes, I believe so. And the purpose of this is that they cannot process payments as required with the very specific deadline. Because as it changes, that specific date would change.
And before I state the motion, I believe that 7.2 would be strike 15 and 2025. Okay, so the motion then is that the board amend section 7.1 by striking 12 and 2025 and add on that date following payroll. In section 7.2, strike 15 and 2025 and add on that date following payroll. Do we have a question from member or Vice Chair Bollinger?
Yeah, just a clarifying question. So we're striking the 2025, but there's also 2026 dates in here. Do we need to?
Let's defer to Superintendent Nilsson because he was the one asking for this amendment.
Okay, so Superintendent Nelson, if you can help us understand, is it just the 2025, or is it all of the year dates that we need to strike?
Yeah, thank you for catching that. So on 7.1, the date that's been identified is December 12th, 2025. So we do need to strike the 2025. We'll leave December to indicate to our staff that there'll be a December payment. On 7.2, it is 2026. So May 15th, 2026, we want to strike 2026. And we'll just indicate to our employees that the payment will come following the deadline for their submission of the activities. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Lear.
I wondered if the same problem, though, exists in 7.3. Does he want to keep that specific language?
Yeah, that is a great point, Board Member Lear. I think striking just 2026, we could leave the May 15th, the middle of the May is when their activities are required.
Annually?
But strike the 20. Yeah, there you go.
And add it annually. Is that what you had in mind?
Yes, thank you.
Member Brenton.
There's also a 2026 and 8.1 for documentation and reporting. Should that also just be May 15th?
Yes, correct.
Member Lear.
What if we just strike 2025 or 2026 wherever it's found in the document? I can see we've got a few challenges.
Okay, there's going to be an amendment to the motion, and it is that we strike 2025 and 2026 from the document. Except the effective date, I know. Yeah, it's riddled throughout here, so. This is a substitute motion. This isn't an amendment. I'm not amending this. I'm just substituting that we do that. So the substitute motion is that we remove 2025 and 2026, or that it be stricken from the document. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any opposed to this or would like to speak on this? Member Davis, are you opposed? Not hearing.
No.
Thank you. Not hearing any opposition. That is the motion, and it has passed. So the underlying motion then, if we go back to that, let me just pull it up here. Is that the board approve the USDB paid professional hours to educators policy as amended in compliance with R277-629 on first reading and forward to the board for final approval. Let's vote. Member Davis?
Yes.
That passes
Did you hear
unanimously.
that?
Yep, I'm sorry, Member Davis. We did hear it. Thank you. And that passes unanimously. Back to you, Chair Wood.
Thank you. Item 6.5, I move that the board approve the USDB bullying, cyberbullying, hazing, and retaliation policy on second and final reading.
The motion before the board is that the board approve the USDB bullying, cyberbullying, hazing, and retaliation policy on second and final reading. Seeing no lights, let's vote. Member Davis?
Yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. Chair Wood?
Our final item for action today, item 6.6, I move that the board approve the USDB Artificial Intelligence AI Use Policy Draft 2 on second and final reading.
The motion before the board is that the board approve the USDB Artificial Intelligence AI Use Policy Draft 2 on second and final reading. Seeing no lights, let's vote. Member Davis?
Yes.
Thank you. That passes 12 in favor, 1 abstention. That abstention coming from Member Carey. Okay, Chair Wood.
That concludes our work. Thank you.
Thank you. That moves us, board members, to agenda item 7. We want to thank the USDB, their staff, for their time and patience as we work through this. Deborah, additionally, thank you. Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Nielsen. Again, let's move to agenda item 7. This is our study session, and we are going to hear regarding CTE and the attendance audit. So first, 7.1 is about CTE, information on CTE. We've got Talia Longhurst here with us, so please. Okay.
To see who is driving or if I can connect to the screen. My apologies.
No worries. We'll give you a few.
There we go.
It's already
We're
up.
up.
Never mind. We're not giving you anything.
We're good to go?
You're good to go. Thank you.
All right, thank you, board members. We're excited to be here today. My name is Talia Longhurst. I'm the State Director of Career and Technical Education. With me today, I have Wendy Morton and Jonathan Fry. They are CT coordinators upstairs in our offices. And we are happy to answer questions and provide a bit of information for you today around career and technical education. I've been waiting for this day for a very long time to be able to do a study session, so thank you for this opportunity. Let's jump, if my computer will go with me, let's jump to our first official slide. Thank you. I just wanted to spend literally 3 seconds just reminding us all that career and technical education is nothing new in today's education. It is new in what we focus on and how we run and how we work, but CTE actually started back in the late 1800s as a result of the Industrial Revolution and the increase in manufacturing. You can see on the slide the different names that CTE has been known by. A lot of people still have that idea of vocational education, which was the longest standing term that was used to describe our programs. But today's programs are very different than we started with in the 1800s and very much focused around high skill, high wage, high demand, or emerging occupations for students for their careers for the future. Next slide. I'm not going to read. I put a lot of words. We debated on how many words to put on these slides. I made them very wordy, and for that I apologize. But I wanted to have that out there so that if you were reviewing these on your own, you could refer to them and understand what we were trying to share. But I won't read every single word to you. The purpose of CTE, though, is to make sure that students have the opportunity to graduate from high school with a credential and a connection to a post-secondary program. CTE today is very much focused on high quality, rigorous, career-focused programs. And regardless of where the student lives, their geographic location, we want to be able to provide them with many opportunities. They're very much hands-on and project-based learning focused. And we work very closely with our partners from the System of Higher Education, Department of Workforce Services, Talent Ready Utah, and most importantly, our Utah employers to make sure that we're preparing our students for the labor market demands of the future. There are benefits to CTE. It allows students while they're grades 7 through 12 to explore opportunities, develop skills, and truly to apply what they're learning on the academic side into what they need those skills for. Nothing makes math more relevant than understanding how you're going to use it in your future. Why math is important. Why am I learning these things? We do offer many opportunities for students to gain credentials and certifications and to engage in their academic programs and a bridge to the future. I always say if I, as a student, a high school student, would have had the opportunities that students have today, I probably would be working in a hospital still as a heart surgeon, which was my career goal. I just didn't believe that I could do it, and I didn't have a lot of the programs when I was in high school. I could spend a whole lot of time telling you about how wonderful our programs are for today. Okay, our next slide, please. Thank you. There are a lot of things about CTE here in Utah that are very unique to states across the country. And we wanted to highlight some of those things. You go out and you see and you talk with people from other states just like we do. And I always say when I go to meetings or speak with people across the country, I have my own list of problems to worry about. And when I'm done speaking with them, I'm really happy that I have my problems and not their problems. The things that we do here in Utah are very unique with regard to CTE and put us in a position that really helps our students to be successful. So here are some of the things that make CTE unique and successful. In Utah, we have our regional planning structure. Across the state of Utah, we have 8 planning regions where the LEAs sit down regularly at a minimum of monthly with their post-secondary partners, workforce services, chambers of commerce, all the different groups in their region, and they plan together. And they talk about what programs and what courses they should be offering and how it's going to work, what needs to sunset, what needs to continue moving forward. We also in Utah have state-determined career pathways. We require showing economic need when we put pathways forward. We make sure that we have direct connections to post-secondary, whether that's through concurrent enrollment, credit for prior learning, direct articulation, a lot of different ways that we look at helping students to gain that credit while they're in high school. We also make sure that we offer industry credentials of value. And then we look at multiple levels of course offerings so that students can start with exploring, learning foundational skills, and then continue to build those skills towards the careers that they're interested in. Next slide, please. Other things that make CTE unique in Utah is that we start CTE formally in 7th grade. We have a course called College and Career Awareness that is required while students are in middle school. Most states are just now catching up to this idea to start that exploration early. And in Utah, we've been doing it for well over 30 years. It's certainly morphed throughout the years. But this course allows students to start thinking about and learning about careers, what they might be interested in, and probably even more importantly, what they're not interested in doing, so that they weed those things out and they continue moving on and exploring things that are of interest to them. In Utah, CTE is a high school graduation requirement. We have a 1.0 credit graduation requirement, unlike nearly every other state. Some states are moving towards this model, but most don't have this model, and I'll explain how CTE is offered in the state of Utah in a moment. But this graduation requirement really ensures that students have an opportunity to at least begin exploring and thinking about careers and looking at what might be of interest to them. Every high school in Utah offers CTE by pathways, which are sequences of courses. We have concurrent enrollment, advanced placement, and IB courses that are available in the CTE area. And then we have a significant amount of state funding that goes to support these programs, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Next slide, please. We wanted to define a couple of things for you. The first is a career cluster. A cluster is a grouping of occupations and broad industries based on common knowledge and skills. And there are currently 14 career clusters, both in the state of Utah and nationally. We align very, very closely to the national structure, which is not required that we align to it, but we do. You can see those 14 clusters listed there for you. Next slide, please. So within those clusters or broad groupings, then there are pathways. We have 32 pathways, which are sequences of courses designed to do exactly what we've talked about, which is build the level of knowledge and skills that a student understands and can do towards different careers. So within those 14 clusters, we have 32 pathways and then many, many courses that make up those pathways.
Can we interrupt with a question before
Absolutely.
you move to the next slide? Member Carey?
Thank you, Chair. If you could just go back to the previous slide, I just have a question. And, you know, like when it was called VOTEC, like that would conjure up certain images of what a VOTEC occupation was, and I would think shop, woodworking, and now with career and technical education, when I looked at the list of available programs, it was harder to put things in that kind of box. So is there and I believe, and I could be mistaken, but I believe like on the Division of Workforce Services, their site, they kind of define CTE or those VOTEC type courses as, and I could be mistaken, those that lead to gainful employment with 2 years or less of formal education. That's my understanding of their definition. One, is that correct? And then two, do we have an operational definition of like CTE? Because I look at these clusters and I'm thinking, I don't think CTE when I think business management. I don't think CTE when I look at necessarily marketing or supply chain, because you can go to school and get a master's or PhD in some of these things. So can you help me understand, is there a line? What is that line? And how do we respect it so there's not this conflagration, or we have two different pathways that might lead to the same thing? Like, so does that make sense? Thank you, Chair.
Wendy Morton, CT coordinator. So the definition that you've described with Department of Workforce Services is specific to like entry level things where somebody might start, would need an associate's degree. You get in the door. That's there's many jobs in a number of those areas, so there might be a significant number of workforce in many of those where it doesn't require a bachelor's degree. It would be an associate's degree or less. And then, but yet within that same industry, there's opportunities to then advance where you might go back to school later, get a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, etc. So career and technical education has really expanded to nearly all of the industry sectors. But really the focus for us initially is that entry level. So we do primarily focus on associate's degree and less, knowing though that students may at some point in time choose to go farther. And many do.
Thank you. That was very helpful. So, like for education, for example, if we look at that on the list, it's CTE to the extent, and this is my understanding. So, is it CTE to the extent that a student wants to pursue education, this student can find a introductory job in that area with 2 years or less of education? Is that generally how we're looking at CTE?
Yes, as we look, if you look at, if you'll go to the next slide that she was showing, if you were to go in and look at our pathways listed within each of these clusters, the information that's tied to those is introductory level, especially at secondary, with connections to an associate degree program at a post-secondary institution or direct employment into the workforce after high school. And so, does that answer your question?
I like to think of them. I like to think of our pathways as highways, right? A student can get onto that path, that road, and start and progress. They can jump off at a high school diploma, an associate's degree, a certification. They can jump back on and go on and get a bachelor's degree, a graduate degree, et cetera, et cetera. We start the pathway for them while they're in high school, and then how far they choose to take it is up to them. And being able to earn credentials along the way, degrees along the way, certifications along the way, so that they can gain meaningful employment is part of the goal.
Member Brinton. We've got a couple more questions before we move on. Member Brinton.
Thank you, Chair. I had somebody say that going to the CTE only high school in St. George could be more limiting than just doing CTE through regular high schools, because if they want to change course, that's not possible once they've started onto a track in 9th grade at the CTE high school. Is that correct?
Well, it's not correct. I can't speak for that school specifically,
Okay.
but my belief is that if a student decided that wasn't a particular pathway they wanted to pursue, they could either switch, return to their home school, or if they did decide to stick with it and finish high school in that pathway, they're learning many, many skills that are transferable regardless of the career that they're ultimately going to have. And they're going to be learning things that will be of great value to them as they proceed down whatever chosen path they have.
Chair, one more. So they can follow up. So they can they switch paths? at the high
I can't,
You're not-
I can't speak to the Career Path High School. I'm
Okay.
not familiar with their policy.
Okay.
But in general, in the state of Utah, we never hold a student to one pathway. They don't sign in blood, and that's
Okay.
it for the rest of their life.
That's
That
what I
is
wondered.
never the case.
Okay.
Member Reel.
On that topic, thank you, Chair. On that topic, I just wanted to add now, when all of our technical colleges became part of the Utah system of higher education, the last few years, all the institutions have been working on articulation agreements and ways to the idea is that if you're getting some of these credentials, for as long as I've known, certificates and like non-credit programs or non-undergraduate programs, they were useless if you eventually wanted to get a bachelor's degree. Now they're making it so that someone could get a certificate in a tech program, and that could happen through their credentials that they're doing this way or through going to a technical college or a community college, and then take those credits and apply it towards their bachelor's degree, which has never been happening before. And the idea is that someone could start in a tech program and then end up a welding certificate and end up with a master's in engineering. And that's really cool. So we have all of those that are the state's doing from the P20 pipeline.
Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm looking at this list, and I love the list, and I love the fact that we're taking these students who may go into a traditional vo-tech area and then say, hey, now you can use that to jump here or there. But like, where is our automotive repair? Where is HVAC-R? Where is carpentry? Where is like the traditional trades? I don't see those listed here. Like, I was just reading about the data center they built down in Delta, Utah. I think it's the largest one in the United States. And one of their concerns is, are we going to have enough electricians, assuming they get enough power, but are they going to have enough electricians to do what needs to be done there? Where did they, and I see you all smiling, so there must be a slide coming up.
We have your answer.
Okay. I don't see any of the trades, so I will wait. But thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Would you like me to respond, Chair?
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
Or,
I'm
yeah.
so excited.
Yeah.
You will find those things listed here. So automotive, for example, is under the supply chain and transportation cluster. It's the very first one listed, bottom right-hand side. Automotive is the very first one. So for example, given what you just asked, auto is there. Many of the things that are very high cost and very specific, like HVAC and electrical, we work with our post-secondary partners to offer those programs. So students not only take CTE at their campus or other LEA facilities, but they can also go over to post-secondary institutions as part of their high school program and take those courses with post-secondary.
So, no, I understand that, but why is that? Why they're not designated here?
Because we're not currently offering programs like HVAC, electrical, plumbing, for examples, on our school campuses.
No, I understand, but does that mean? But can't we still list them here? I mean, there's still courses that. I mean, I just was with board member Bollinger at this fantastic facility where students were doing all sorts of things, but like, why aren't they listed on this? And like, even automotive, that's under supply chain and transportation, and the automotive I'm thinking of is less engineering and supply chain and more, this engine needs to be fixed or this repair needs to be done. So where are those trades here?
Good. Okay. So in automotive specifically, that's a good example that we can talk about. There's a lot of, the cluster is the larger grouping tied to the Department of Workforce Services Industries. So automotive being within that would have small engine repair. They would have, we have, and Jonathan can correct me if I'm wrong, but we have also, yes, we do have diesel.
We have auto repair.
We have auto repair in general. We have
collision
repair. So those are all in there. You wouldn't see them in this list, but when you go to the pathway detail, that's where you would find the specific course names that would have names that you might be more familiar with that talk about automotive. It's the pathway list.
This is not the course list.
Correct.
And you're saying if I saw the course list, I would see those. And is
Yeah.
the course list coming up?
It's over 300 courses, so we haven't put it out there for you, but if you go onto our website, you can find them. And in fact, next month, you will see 39 of those courses brought to you for your approval.
I can barely survive on licensing. So, but I guess my concern is this, which is I thought the emphasis here was on the trades, not creating opportunities for students to continue to stay the education route. And not saying that wasn't a possibility, but that wasn't my understanding that was the focus. And when I look at something like this, it seems like the focus here is, yeah, if they want to go out and they want to do some welding or they want to do some carpentry, that's fantastic and we're going to support them. But we're really trying to create an environment where when they wake up one day and realize, maybe I don't want to be doing this, that time will be able to give them credit to jump back in. I don't see the emphasis on these pathways for trades. And again, I see automotive, and I think the closest thing I see to trades is actually under advanced manufacturing and engineering. And when I think like the welding, I don't think advanced manufacturing and engineering as the trade. That to me, that's more of the academic end. So again, I'm just sharing an observation, and I can follow up with the group, and that's just my observation. Everyone else seems to understand what this is really saying. So I'll follow up offline so we don't take any more time. But thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Member Kelly.
Joe, let me, if you don't mind, maybe I can address Joe's. From my son went through a diesel mechanics program while in high school. What we're finding is it's to have an auto shop, a welding shop, a wood shop, and we could go on, right, in one high school is not feasible. And so I think, what's started to happen is that you may take an introductory course at the high school in auto mechanics, but if you want to pursue that further, you're going to go off campus to an MTech, and the counselor is going to kind of help you through that process. So my son's senior year, the first 2 periods of the day, both on A day and B day, he would go to MTech. The last 2 periods of the day, he'd come back to the high school for the last 2 periods. But his coursework, his senior year, for a good portion of the day was, in this pathway or in this in that specific cluster. So I don't know if that helps, but.
Okay, I've got Member Booth, and then after Member Booth, if it's okay with the board, we are on slide 8 of 26, and then we have the attendance audit. So, Member Booth. I don't know if I can be more clear than that, but Member Booth.
I'll talk really fast. With 16 years on the board of MTech, at the same time as I was on the local board in NEBO, I had an opportunity to interface a lot with CTE and with all the courses we were offering throughout NEBO district, and the interface with MTech and the sister institutions who were then having these articulation agreements with MTech and the colleges, Weber State, UVVU, and I saw the gradual change, Joe. I saw this gradual change from the vocational education, the technical education, to college and career readiness, and that it was career technical education, and we were marrying the two in hopes that students might get more excited about a whole education and really getting as much training in as many different directions as they possibly could get, so it increases their earning power and their success in their chosen field. So I think it's just critical that we don't think of this as just vocational education or career and technical education. It is career, which very well may require a PhD, or become a heart surgeon, or whatever the career is they finally settle on. This is career and technical education. It's very work oriented. Let's get right into it. Let's see what we can do to bypass all of the hoops you have to jump through for academia. Let's do everything we can do that we've got to do earlier. And the pathways to career and tech and career readiness are outlined here. But I love the fact that it's pathways to college and career readiness, not just vocational, even though some students are perfectly thrilled to get the welding training or the electrician training or the medical assistant training, dental technician, all those different opportunities. And that gives them a job opportunity right there with the certifications that they'll get, or they can do additional certifications and earn more money. It's just such a wonderful opportunity for a student to personalize their educational journey. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
If I can get you to do one thing today, it will be to not think in terms of vocational tech, voc tech, whatever you want to call it. If some of you are as old as me, you probably know that term. Today's CTE is very, very different than that. There is nothing wrong with those trades. We focus on those, we offer those programs, but it's much more broad and really focused around all areas of careers. Let me jump to the next slide. I can go very quickly. Next slide just has, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, you're fine. We're going to send just a quick message to board members. Check your phones about kind of, well, not yet. Amanda's working on it. I know. Check your phones when she says just about our agenda for today. It's just, yeah, nothing like, oh, what's the secret here? Public, there's no secret here. I'm just asking what they want to do moving forward. So please, Talia, just go as planned and we will continue on. Thank you.
Before you, right here on this slide is some data points. We always like to try to tell our story. One thing that I do want to point out that's very important to understand is that despite the declining enrollment in Utah schools, the participation of students in CTE programs and courses continues to increase every year. So you hear that as a message from time to time. Well, enrollment is declining, so we don't need as many resources or whatever the message is. In CTE, our programs are increasing, enrollment is increasing, and that is very important to students. So I wanted to point that out really quickly. Let's jump to the next slide. This is a really important one for you to understand how CTE is offered to Utah students. First and foremost, the vast majority of our students take CTE courses at their traditional or alternative comprehensive high school. Every high school campus offers CTE. Some just some very basic foundational courses and some maybe middle level courses. Others have very high level, broad programs with many pathways offered. All are welcome, all are available to students at their home high school. This is very different from most states. In most states, to participate in any kind of CTE, students leave their home high school, go to an area CTE center, and they may or may not choose to do that. If they don't go participate at an area center, they really get no exposure to CTE while they're in high school. Here in Utah, we have some LEA-owned technical centers. They're run as magnet schools. They're not comprehensive high schools. Students go, as Board Member Kelly described, well, slightly the same idea, but a little different. Students would go to their home high school for part of the day and then leave and go to the LEA-owned technical center for part of the day. Those are very high-cost, centralized programs so that students from all across the districts or region, in some cases, can participate in those programs. We also, as Board Member Britton highlighted, we have one LEA, Washington County School District, who has opened a CTE high school. That is a high school that they still offer CTE at all of their other comprehensive schools, but they have one high school with multiple pathways. Students, if they're admitted there, they go to that school, they pick a pathway, and it's done in kind of a small learning community or an academy type of model where they take their academic courses together focused around different pathways that they've chosen, and then their CTE programs together. They graduate from that school. It is a comprehensive school, and it's the first of its kind here in Utah. It's something that they choose to do. Again, we don't require them to sign in blood, and they're stuck there for the rest of their lives. And then the other model is closer to what Board Member Kelly described, which is partnering with post-secondary campuses. This happens all over the state, where LEAs partner and students leave their home schools for part of the day and go over to post-secondary campuses. We even have post-secondary instructors who will come onto the homeschool campus and teach courses where they have a high need and a large number of students. So those 4 ways is how CTE is offered. Next slide. If I could just highlight for you very quickly what is professions-based learning. So you're hearing a lot about this Catalyst Center model. This gets a little confusing because it's true, the Catalyst Center is one of those LEA-owned CTE technical centers in Davis School District. It's one of 9 tech centers in the state of Utah. It's an outstanding one. It's one of our very, very best. All of our technical centers are really amazing places for students to be able to go. What professions-based learning is a little bit different. It's not dependent upon the actual technical center known as the Davis Catalyst Center, but it is a model of learning where education partners with industry to provide students with mentors and real industry problems to solve as part of their coursework. You may hear the term CAPS, which is the Center for Advanced Professional Studies. That is a national nonprofit that really has led out in professions-based learning. Not every CTE program lends itself to this professions-based learning model, but it is a fantastic model, and that model is not facility dependent. We have many, many CAPS programs or professions-based learning programs running here in the state of Utah. Some are done in tech centers, some are done in home high schools, and many, many other facilities that look very different from one place to the next. Next slide, please. I wanted to highlight quickly work-based learning. This is a part of CTE. This is where students have opportunities to really learn a variety of skills by getting outside of the classroom, so to speak. Whether that's bringing guest speakers into the classroom or getting students out to do internships, apprenticeships, clinical experiences, job shadows, all of those kinds of things. This is part of what we do in CTE. What this is not, it's not work release. So when a student wants to leave school and go to work, that is a different experience because they're not mentored, they're not necessarily learning connected to the classroom on the job. Next slide, please. You're all probably very familiar with our career and technical student organizations, or CTSOs. We have 8 here in the state of Utah. These are very critical to our CTE programs because they are an extension of the classroom. These are not just after-school clubs that meet for a good time. These are co-curricular. They're integrated into the CTE curriculum and really give the students an opportunity to practice their skills as part of the organization and to gain leadership experiences. Last year, we had over 36,000 students participating in CTSOs. Just over $900,000 comes here to USBE, which we send out in grants to the organizations for management costs. We require some things of them. They are private 501c3s, but they run based on the needs of the LEAs, and we have general oversight to ensure that what they're doing is financially responsible, that they are accountable to the LEAs in many ways, that they're doing the things that we need them to do in order to connect properly to our programs. Next slide, please. I'll also mention very quickly our summer agriculture programs. These are very intensive experiences that happen in the summer connected to agriculture education. And they are very structured and allow students and teachers to work together for practical hands-on agriculture programs. Next slide, please. College and Career Awareness, I mentioned this earlier. This is our middle school level course. It serves as an opportunity for students to begin exploring. Most students, as I've worked with middle school students over the years, really know about careers that they've been exposed to personally. My background is healthcare, obviously. I talked about wanting to be a heart surgeon. When you talk to kids about careers in healthcare at that age, who do you think they know? They know doctors, they know nurses, and that may be about it. And so that's one example where we try to help them understand the very broad range of opportunities that are available to them. We help them understand what they're good at, and we help them start to plan, what might I like to do? Again, I always consider myself successful when I'm working with a group of students and they decide what they don't want to do. That makes a big difference to students, and the earlier you learn some of those lessons, the better off you are. It's really an on-ramp for students, teaching them about how to make informed choices about their future. Next slide, please. Credentials and certifications. Last year, we had nearly 300,000 students earning an industry credential. That's a huge number. You'll hear a lot about the wonderful First Credential program. In fact, I have a slide coming up on it. It will add to what we're already doing. We have many, many credentials that are out there and available to students, and they are doing a very good job of working towards and earning those credentials. There are really 3 different levels of credentials: foundational, post-secondary, which includes our concurrent enrollment AP and IB, and then career launching credentials, which are those right-to-work certifications and licenses in many cases, and those lead to immediate employment. Here is some information on the First Credential program. You're going to be hearing more and more about this as we move through this year. This is an effort to ensure that every Utah high school student graduates with a meaningful industry-aligned credential that prepares them for college and the workforce. There are 5 routes that a student can use to get that quote-unquote first credential. At the end of one of those routes, they will be provided with a scholarship from the system of higher education, and hopefully have a really great experience by which they can then move on and go about whatever pathway they choose.
Yeah, Member Carey.
Just on the previous slide, if I may, that attainment of an industry recognized credential from the master list, is that available currently?
No. So the First Credential Master Plan will be presented, hopefully. No. This is breaking news.
This is breaking news. It is not on the agenda for the interim, but the report will be published, so we'll get it to you as soon as it's published. It was going to be a presentation at Ed Interim, but we found out yesterday that is not true.
Thank you. And then just one other question. It says 300 hours of a youth apprenticeship. So are we saying that the other 4, it says that there's 5 ways to get this first credential. One way is 300 hours of a youth apprenticeship. Are we suggesting that the other 4 will also take approximately 300 hours?
Roughly. I don't know that there was an effort to equate exactly, but it's a significant amount of time. It would be similar to the completion of a technical college program, for example, is the 5th route. The idea is they're putting in some significant time and gaining the knowledge and skills by which they will then be able to move forward. This is from the law. We did not make this up.
That these alternate routes have to take about 300 hours?
I don't know exactly how they were decided. This is not my list. This comes from the law.
No, that I understand, but I'm just trying, like, what I'm thinking is, like, Google Analytics 4, that's the gold standard in many ways in that industry. It doesn't take nearly 300 hours to study for and pass that industry certification. So when it said industry recognized credential, I was thinking something like that. But it sounds like what we're saying is, no, we're looking at something that's going to take our students about 300 hours. Like, that's what I'm trying to find out.
So it will require a rigorous high-level industry certification. It's not just every certification that's possible. If you go back one slide, there were those 3 tiers of credentials that we go back one slide. There we go. Thank you. The foundational, stackable kinds of things. those will not count for a first credential. Really is those last two areas where students have to achieve a very high level of certification in order to qualify as a first credential. And let me just plug in, I know Jonathan wants to add something quickly, but the first credential master list is not part of the master plan framework. It actually, once the master plan is adopted or received by the legislature, then we will go about creating that master list.
And does anyone on this body sit on that creation list? And when I say this, but I'm talking about the 15 elected board members. You serve on it, Leah? Okay. Thank you.
Jonathan, did you want to?
Yeah, Jonathan Fry, CT coordinator. Just so Member Carey, you do understand on these, when you're looking at what they're attaining on the next slide, it's not one and done type of a situation. You're looking at up to 5 CE courses, which is equivalently about 300 hours in coursework. When you're looking at attaining those certificates, you're looking at there's several courses they will have to have completed to prepare for in that process. And so when you're saying equivalency, in all honesty, for most of those, it will be equivalently of about that 300 hours.
And you may not know the answer to this, but I'm curious, something like Google Analytics 4, which can lead to gainful employment, is that in your foundational? Is that post-secondary? Is that career launching? Or doesn't even make the cut?
As of right now, that's undetermined because we haven't created that master list. And so when that would be some of those pieces as we can consider what would be counted as that. So something like that would be career determining.
So
they could
it's
get a job.
to be determined.
To be determined, yeah. Just because we're not that far along in that process.
I understand that. Thank you. And thank you, Chair. No more questions.
If we could move forward 2 slides, and I just found a typo, so don't look at this slide very closely.
I do have a question from Member Earl. I don't mean to stop you. Member Earl means to stop you. Just want to, yeah. So Member Earl, go ahead.
My question has to do with the scholarship that was mentioned. Is there any restrictions on that? If you complete the credentialing, you would get the scholarship.
Correct. As long as you meet the requirements that will be set forth once we get that far.
And that scholarship looks like what? It sounds like it's to higher ed for 1 year. What? Do you know what that scholarship looks like?
It is a one-time scholarship, so it'd be the following year after.
So just to get you into college.
And it would go towards any Utah university, tech college, apprenticeship program, whatever that student is going down to, whatever that process is, that pathway that they're going through.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can we go 1 slide back up? Whoever's driving, I appreciate it. Thank you. We just wanted to give you, again, don't look, I just found a typo. We wanted to give you kind of a broad look at all of the code, statute, board rule, all of the things that we work under. There are a lot of things, and we try really hard to follow those to the very best of our ability. So we wanted to give you a quick glance at that. To the next slide, please. Here is a look at our staffing breakdown just for CTE. So when the agency reorganized in June, there is a separate team that I have that I oversee that is not included in these numbers because they are a different team, not part of the CTE programs proper. So we are at 26.65 FTEs. They're broken out there for you to see. About 10.5 FTE are paid out of federal dollars, and 16.15 FTEs are paid out of state dollars. So we wanted to break that out for you. When it comes to funding for CTE, we have our federal Perkins dollars. Many people believe that we get a lot of money from Perkins, and we get just a little over 17 million. That 17 million is not a big number in terms of education dollars often, but that is very important to us and to our programs more specifically. 85% of that money comes into USBE and flows out directly to secondary and post-secondary. USBE is the eligible recipient for these federal funds, and we do split that money secondary and post-secondary. 10% is comes to us in leadership funds. Much of that is also sent out in grants to LEAs and post-secondary institutions. Some of it stays here to help fund the work that our staff do, and then 5% for administrative, and there are specific requirements we have in the federal law around administrating the program, the federal program.
Member Lear.
So if money is misspent by LEAs, is the USBE responsible for that, like similar to special ed?
Yes.
To pay back? Okay, thanks.
Let's go back one more time. I know you guys are hurrying me through. I'm trying, but let me just highlight the state CT add-on dollars. 130 million right there comes. That is our FY26 amount. 100% of that money flows out to LEAs with approved CTE programs. This does represent a decrease from FY25 of a little over $500,000. And just pointing out, in case you had questions, that in the 2025 session, the legislature removed the add-on carve-outs for college and career awareness and CTSOs. Again, that's money that would normally have flown out to LEAs. Okay, next slide.
Thank you. And I do have Member Booth and Member Earl. And I apologize for the interruptions, but this is what the study
okay.
session is for, right? And so
Absolutely.
I want the questions to be answered. So can we go to Member Booth first?
Thank you. So I've had a number of my teachers and CTE folks in Nebo and Provo express to me their concern about the CTSOs and their limited possibilities compared to the past. We've always enjoyed here as a board hearing about our national delegations in all these different areas as they've gone back to Washington or back to Kansas City or wherever they're going for these experiences, and how much those programs are being diminished now that they don't have the support that they once had. What would we, I mean, how much was lost? What would we need to do to reinstate those opportunities? Because in so many cases, for those leadership type students in each of these different areas, getting connected to the people on a national level and seeing what they do when you get them all together, and the level of expertise is just so enriching and motivational to them that I hate to see that experience being withheld from our Utah students.
Thank you for that question. Let me just be very clear. The CTSOs did not go away. We still have them. The LEAs find them to, and students and teachers find them to be of enough value that the programs have stayed. The legislature did not eliminate the programs. They eliminated the carve-out, which funded LEAs a bit of money, a significant amount of money, to help fund those activities. Wendy's going to get us the exact total that was lost here in a second, but it is important to know that those programs continue. There is some potential additional loss that is being discussed that may or may not happen in the 2026 session that would drastically change the way that CTSOs operate in the state of Utah and really call into question whether or not we continue to support them. That would be a legislative decision as to how they proceed with that. I mentioned the little over $900,000 that comes here that we grant out to the organizations to help them run. Again, they each get under $100,000, so it's not a significant amount of money that goes to them, but it makes a huge difference in being able to get them off the ground and running each year. Wendy has a total.
Okay.
Until it goes red.
There we go. So what had been withheld from our allocation for CTSOs was 1% of an allocation each year. So whatever the allocation was, we were withholding 1% of that would go back to LEAs to support career and technical student organizations. And so that is the carve-out total that was removed. So essentially, last year it was $1,307,000.
So you may look at the number that I have on the screen, the decrease of just over $500,000, and think, where'd that $1 million go? We did have as you all know, we had an increase in the WPU value. That is the difference between the increase in growth minus the number of WPUs to get to that 1% that Wendy talked about.
Member Earl.
I think she answered my question. And the add-on is directly correlated with the WPUs. The
Correct.
WPUs are calculated based on a high school that says I need 10 WPUs for CTE.
Go ahead
No?
and
I'd like to
explain.
answer.
Yeah.
So we receive our allocation from the legislature based off the dollar amount that they budget for us, which translates to a certain number of WPUs.
Okay.
However, part of the allocations to LEAs are tied to a set number of WPUs that they receive. So a cut in the number of WPUs does impact more greatly the programs because of that difference in how it is formulated out to the LEAs.
So, and let me just be clear. So every high school, if you have 1,000 WPUs, right, students attending there, you would get a add-on based just on the number of students in attendance at your high school.
So it's students participating in CTE programs.
Okay, that's what I was.
Yes.
And they would base that on the previous year's numbers and then
Correct.
Project it to the next year,
Uh,
just based on the previous years.
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, let's keep going.
All right, the next slide is just a simple pie chart. Sometimes it's helpful to see things in graphic form. You can see federal funds versus our state add-on funds. Again, money going to LEAs and for post-secondary for federal dollars. The difference there, the state funding is significant. I mentioned that as a unique thing here in Utah is that statewide support. And that really does make a difference for what we do here in Utah. Next slide, please. I also just quickly wanted to highlight some additional funding that comes from our state legislature here to USBE that is sent out for different programs. We have our Computer Science Initiative, which really is a K-12 program, IT Academy, Student Credential Account, which is an aptitude-based program, and a number of other things in that account, that program, that really has made a significant difference and impact for students at both the middle school and high school level. We could spend an hour telling you stories about what LEAs are doing with students as they learn about what their aptitudes are and really opening their eyes to what they're good at and how they might want to think about their future. We mentioned the First Credential program as well. There's that $900,000 number for CTSO management, online assessments, which is part of our certification program, ProStart, which is a curriculum through the Utah Restaurant Association Foundation for culinary arts, and then just about $2.5 million comes here to USBE to pay for those staff that I highlighted on our staffing list that are paid by state dollars. All right, next slide, please. I was asked to share any contracts, grants, and purchases that CTE currently, our section currently has out. That's listed there for you. Some of those, a matter of fact, 2 of them you just looked at yesterday with regard to Pathful and Lightcast. Others you can see tied directly to some of the funding that comes from the legislature and bills and statute and code and rules that we have. Next slide, please. Finally, I wanted to end with how career and technical education aligns with your brand new, hot off the press strategic plan. And just really quickly, very closely aligns to your mission and vision to open the doors of opportunity for all Utah children. And then for the next slide, specifically, I wanted to highlight Goal 1 and Goal 2, which is elevating student learning and promoting educator quality and effectiveness. And I am happy to answer as many questions as you have.
Okay, thank you. Member Kelly.
I may be sharing with you a personal grudge, okay? And don't feel like I'm taking it out on you, all right? But as you may know, I'm a financial literacy teacher. And a lot of us financial literacy teachers, the class fits nowhere in education right now. It's not in history. It's not in the history department. It's not in the math department. It's it's in no department, and a lot of us feel like its best home is probably in the CTE department, but we've been told that the CTE department doesn't want us.
I'm not
Can you
sure
t-
that's accurate.
Okay, I'm curious to hear you guys' thoughts. I've heard it's a funding reason, in terms of that it may cause, but I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on why financial literacy hasn't been included as a CTE course.
Okay. And before you answer that, can we keep this? I don't know what the LEA's policy is. You know what I mean? I don't want this to get into a LEA versus this. Just speak for yourself, please, and let's not put anybody on trial here.
So all of a sudden I look at Board Member Carey. I'll look to this side of the room. I think one way I want to answer that question is to say here at USBE, financial literacy is under my oversight. So it is within here at USBE. The program is within CTE. So our oversight is through the CTE department, and that is mainly because many of the teachers who teach financial literacy also happen to be business, marketing, finance teachers anyway. And so that is how it was originally aligned structurally here at USBE. So I have a staff member who is 3/4 time financial literacy, which is a K-12 program. And she works in our department, and we oversee that program. Now, as a course, it is a graduation requirement. It was implemented as a standalone course. It is not its own pathway. It is not its own anything. It is a course, which is a graduation requirement. Therefore, it doesn't fit the structure of pathways and clusters on its own. We have a finance pathway. I don't know that we list financial literacy in our pathway. That is something we can always look at if we don't already. But just structurally, it is a course, not a pathway, not a full-blown program. Do you want to add anything? No. Good. Okay.
Got Member Davis online, and then Member Carey.
This is probably less of a question, but and more just a statement, but since it's a study session, I hope that's appropriate. The CTSO and career readiness monies that were specifically allocated for those, we had made a motion in the board to try to preserve those, and it did not pass. Just historically, I just want to make sure we remember it was difficult because, and I had this conversation with a legislator, and she said, well, we're giving an increase to CTE because the WPUs and such. And so it shouldn't matter that we cut those things out. What I think was not understood is that there was an increase in students accessing CTE. So even with the increase, it didn't offset the number of students that we had increased. And so it resulted in an actual loss of $500,000. So if you're talking with legislators and these conversations are coming up, I just share that with you because when I went to PEA, there were a bunch of students and CTE teachers from like 2 different districts. I think it might have been 3. They were not my districts. But those students were there because they were trying to prevent any more losses of that nature, because it's hard to say, well, the LEA can just make different choices and then fund it out of these other funds or this other increase, when overall every dollar actually is providing less than it was even prior to this. I hope that my understanding is accurate, and our CTE folks can correct me if I'm wrong, but I just think it's really important for us to know as we're talking to these students or teachers or legislators, or, because this conversation continues to swirl around, at least as recently as the last PEA meeting that was just a month or a few weeks ago. I don't even remember. Time is all mixing together.
Thank you. Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. You showed us a slide and it had the five ways to get that first credential. And the 5 ways or lanes that were listed, those are dictated by statute, correct?
That is correct.
But I just want to make sure so I understand the 300-hour requirement, was that also listed in statute?
Yes, sir.
And just for that one particular lane or pathway?
The 300 hours, correct.
Okay, and is there any indication that the other pathways also have to resemble the 300 hours?
I know they thought about it and talked about it. I wasn't there for the writing of the bill, so I can't give you the exact theory or philosophy on why they chose these things. Other than, I will say this, prior to First Credential, we've had the Prime program for a couple of years. Many of those requirements are very similar, if not exactly the same from the Prime program. So this does date back a few years.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Member Kelly.
I wanted to follow up on Member Davis yesterday. You guys know my feelings on extracurricular activities, the Utah High School Activities Association. A lot of these CTSOs hold that same value for a lot of these kids and their programs that I think that are valuable for kids to be involved in the school and so supporting those CTSOs I think is it should be a priority of our board because those are I think quality programs that go hand in hand with these CTE courses.
Okay. Talia, please.
Sorry, I shouldn't have turned my light off. Thank you all. And if you have other questions, we're happy to talk at any point in time. You have my contact information. Thank you for letting us come and present to you today.
Thank you, all of you. Appreciate your time and help here. So thank you. Okay, board members. The next item is what we're doing on the attendance audit. If you looked in your if you recall in backup for the attendance audit portion, it's somewhat interactive, and so some of us when we said, hey, we want to push this, we want to get it done today, and some said let's push, others said let's rush. Not one of you said take your time. I've got all night. So. What we would like to do is we would like to put this as a standalone study session item for December, where it's in backup. Take a look at it, fill out whatever documents are in there, or at least have them on your mind, and then we'll be better prepared for December. So if that's appropriate, I would seek a final motion. Second? I'll second it. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.